how did ancient humans know how to reproduce? They had no books, no doctors, no schools, no biology. So who taught them? And today, let's travel back 100,000 years to discover the surprising answer. A tribe without children had no future. Hunters would grow old, elders would pass away, and without a new generation to replace them, the entire group would eventually disappear. That is why reproduction was far more than a private matter. It was the foundation of survival itself. Every newborn meant hope, more helping hands in the future, and another chance for the tribe to continue against a world that was constantly trying to wipe them out. Before we continue, I'd love to ask you something. What time is it where you're watching this video? Let me know in the comments, and I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. Ancient humans knew nothing about biology, but they were excellent observers. Nature was their classroom, and every day offered a new lesson. As they traveled through forests and open grasslands, they watched animals mate. They saw female deer, wolves, and wild horses grow larger over time before giving birth to healthy offspring. Mothers protected their young, fed them, and raised them until they could survive on their own. Then they noticed the same pattern within their own tribe. After a man and a woman spent time together, months would pass before the woman's body slowly changed. Her belly grew larger. Eventually, she gave birth to a baby. This didn't happen just once. It happened again and again across different families and different generations. No one understood sperm, eggs, or DNA. They couldn't explain pregnancy with science because science did not exist. But they didn't need scientific knowledge to recognize a pattern. By simply observing the world around them, ancient humans began connecting cause and effect. They realized that new life did not appear by chance. It followed a sequence that repeated itself over and over. Long before the first written language, nature had already become humanity's greatest teacher, quietly revealing the secrets of life to anyone patient enough to watch. Observation alone was not enough. Ancient humans were also guided by something much older than knowledge: instinct. Like every other animal on earth, they were born with a natural drive to reproduce. They did not need to understand the biology behind it. Attraction, bonding, and the desire to have children were all part of the instincts that had been shaped by evolution over countless generations. But instinct could only take them so far. Experience became just as important. Women in particular gain the deepest understanding of pregnancy and childbirth because they live through it themselves. They learned which foods seemed to help during pregnancy, which plants could ease pain, and how to care for newborn babies during their most fragile days. Every successful birth became a lesson. Every mistake became a warning. Without books or written records, this knowledge was passed from one generation to the next through observation, imitation, and storytelling. Young girls watched older women. Children witnessed births within the tribe. Elders shared their experiences around the fire, preserving practical knowledge that had been tested by time. Slowly, generation after generation, these lessons accumulated. Ancient humans still did not understand reproduction in a scientific sense, but they understood enough to protect mothers, raise healthy children, and ensure that their people would survive for thousands of years to come. In today's world, pregnancy is often seen as a private family matter, but for ancient humans, it was something the entire tribe experienced together. Most prehistoric tribes were small, sometimes made up of only a few dozen people. Everyone lived, traveled, hunted, and slept close to one another. There were no separate homes or private rooms when a woman became pregnant. Everyone noticed. When labor began, the whole tribe knew. And when a baby was finally born, it was a moment shared by the entire community. Every child represented hope. A newborn was more than another mouth to feed. One day that child would become a hunter, a gatherer, a protector, or a parent. The future of the tribe depended on the survival of its youngest members. Because of this, protecting pregnant women and newborn babies became a responsibility shared by everyone. Mothers were often given extra care. Other women helped during childbirth, while the rest of the tribe worked together to provide food, safety, and support. In a world where danger existed around every corner, raising a child was never a task for one person alone. It was a collective effort. The survival of every newborn increased the chances that the tribe itself would survive, making reproduction not just a personal event, but one of the most important responsibilities of the entire community. Even after years of observation, there was still one question ancient humans could not answer. Why did pregnancy happen at all? They could see the pattern, but they could not explain the invisible process taking place inside the body. Without science, medicine, or written knowledge, they searched for answers in the only places they knew, the natural world and the spiritual world. Many believe that children were gifts from powerful spirits, ancestors, or the forces of nature. The moon, the stars, the changing seasons, and even certain animals were often connected to fertility and new life. Pregnancy itself may have seemed mysterious, almost magical, because no one could see what was happening until a baby was finally born. Over time, these beliefs became stories. Those stories became traditions. Rituals surrounding pregnancy, childbirth, and newborn babies help families make sense of the unknown while bringing comfort during uncertain times. Without writing, stories were the library of the prehistoric world. Around campfires, elders passed down everything they had learned, not only practical advice about childbirth, but also the myths and beliefs that gave meaning to life. In this way, knowledge survived through memory, tradition, and storytelling long before the first words were ever written on stone or paper. Generation after generation, ancient humans continued to observe the same pattern. A man and a woman formed a bond. Time passed, the woman became pregnant. Months later, a child was born. They still had no idea about sperm, eggs, chromosomes, or DNA, but they no longer believed that every birth happened by pure chance. Through thousands of years of observation, they gradually understood that reproduction followed a predictable sequence. The connection between men, women, and the birth of children became impossible to ignore. This simple realization changed human society forever. As people began recognizing the relationship between parents and children, the idea of family became stronger. Bloodlines started to matter. Parents became responsible not only for raising their children, but also for passing on skills, knowledge, and traditions. Over time, this understanding helped shape the first social rules surrounding relationships, marriage, cooperation, and the care of future generations. People no longer thought only about surviving today. They began thinking about tomorrow, about their children, and about the generations that would come after them. Without realizing it, ancient humans had taken one of the first steps toward building organized societies. A simple understanding of reproduction became the foundation for families, communities, and eventually civilization itself. Ancient humans never understood reproduction the way we do today. They knew nothing about biology, genetics, hormones, or DNA. They had no laboratories, no scientific theories, and no medical knowledge to explain how new life began. Yet they didn't need modern science to survive. Instead, they learned through careful observation. They trusted their instincts. They built knowledge from experience, and they passed those lessons from one generation to the next through stories, traditions, and everyday life. Little by little, this simple understanding became enough. It was enough to protect mothers, enough to raise healthy children, enough to keep families together, and enough to ensure that each generation could replace the one before it. Looking back, the greatest achievement of our ancestors was not discovering the science of reproduction. It was learning just enough about it to keep humanity alive. Without books, without doctors, and without written knowledge, they relied on the greatest teacher they had ever known, nature itself. And perhaps that is the most remarkable lesson of all. Sometimes survival does not require knowing every answer. It only requires understanding enough to pass life on to the next generation. That simple wisdom carried humanity through tens of thousands of years, laying the foundation for every family, every society, and every civilization that exists today. And imagine opening your eyes in Africa 2 million years ago. There are no cities, no homes, no roads, only endless wilderness. You have no shelter, no fire, no weapons, no way to call for help. Just your bare body standing in a world that wants to kill you. Somewhere nearby, a lion is hunting, a leopard watches silently from the trees, hyenas wait for an opportunity while venomous snakes hide beneath your feet. Hunger follows you every day, and even finding clean water is never guaranteed. Every sunrise is a victory. Every sunset could be your last. Yet somehow, against impossible odds, your ancestors survived. How did such a fragile creature endure for 2 million years while countless stronger species disappeared forever? At first glance, ancient humans didn't look like survivors. Compared to the predators that shared their world, they seemed almost defenseless. They had no sharp claws to fight with, no powerful fangs to tear through flesh. Their thin skin offered little protection against the cold, and unlike many animals, they had no thick fur to keep them warm. They couldn't outrun most predators, couldn't overpower them in a fight, and their eyesight became remarkably poor once the sun disappeared below the horizon. Even their children made survival more difficult. Human babies were among the most helpless infants in the animal kingdom, requiring years of constant care before they could survive on their own. Every child demanded food, protection, and time, resources that were never guaranteed in the prehistoric wilderness. From a purely biological perspective, ancient humans seemed badly equipped for life on Earth. Nearly every major predator was stronger, faster, better armed, or better adapted to the environment. If you've made it this far, I'd love to ask you something. Leave a comment and tell me what time it is where you are right now and how you're doing today. I really enjoy seeing where everyone is watching from. I hope you're having a wonderful day or a peaceful night. Whatever time you're watching this, I wish you good health, good luck, and happiness. Now, let's continue our journey into the ancient world. On paper, ancient humans should never have survived, yet they did, not for centuries, but for nearly 2 million years, because evolution wasn't finished with us. The story of humanity didn't begin with us. Long before Homo sapiens walked the earth, other ancient human species were already struggling to survive. Around 2 million years ago, Homo habilis began shaping simple stone tools. Later came Homo erectus, a species that learned to travel across vast landscapes and eventually spread far beyond Africa. Over hundreds of thousands of years, new human species emerged, including Homo heidelbergensis, the powerful Neanderthals, and eventually our own species, Homo sapiens. They were not identical, and many would eventually disappear. But they all faced the same relentless challenge: surviving one more day in a world filled with predators, harsh climates, disease, and constant uncertainty. For nearly 2 million years, generation after generation was born into danger. Most never knew comfort. They hunted, gathered, adapted, and endured, not because they knew the future, but simply because surviving long enough to raise the next generation was enough. No single breakthrough transformed humanity overnight. Survival was built slowly, one discovery at a time across countless generations. Every new skill, every lesson learned, and every small innovation became another reason humanity didn't disappear. The first great advantage wasn't strength, it was intelligence put into action. Ancient humans began shaping simple stones into cutting tools. These crude tools allowed them to butcher animal carcasses more efficiently, crack open bones for nutritious marrow, and process plants that would otherwise be difficult to eat. They didn't always hunt large animals themselves. Often they scavenged what powerful predators had left behind, taking advantage of every opportunity to survive. Over time, they also learned the value of working together. A single human stood little chance against dangerous prey, but a coordinated group could plan, communicate, and hunt as a team. Food was often shared among family members and the wider group, increasing the chances that everyone, including children and the elderly, would survive. Ancient humans didn't become stronger than the animals around them. They simply became a little smarter with every generation. Then came one of the greatest turning points in human history: fire. At first, fire provided something simple but essential: warmth. It allowed ancient humans to survive colder nights and expand into environments that had once been too harsh to inhabit. but its true impact went far beyond keeping warm. Fire kept many predators at a distance, creating a small circle of safety in an otherwise dangerous world. It made food easier to chew and digest, allowing the body to absorb more energy from every meal. Around the flames, people could remain awake long after sunset, repairing tools, caring for children, and sharing knowledge through stories and experience. As evenings grew longer, so did opportunities to learn from one another. Families became more connected, cooperation became stronger, and knowledge was preserved across generations. Fire did far more than illuminate the darkness. It transformed the way ancient humans survived. What truly separated ancient humans from most other animals wasn't physical strength. It was their ability to learn, remember, and teach. When one individual discovered a better way to make a stone tool, find water during a drought, or avoid a dangerous predator, that knowledge didn't disappear with them. It could be shared with others. Parents taught their children. Elders passed on lessons earned through years of experience. Over time, simple sounds evolved into more effective communication, making cooperation and planning easier than ever before. Unlike most animals, each new generation didn't have to learn everything through trial and error. They inherited thousands of small discoveries from those who came before them. Every lesson remembered meant one less deadly mistake. Every skill passed on increased the group's chances of survival. This ability to preserve and build upon knowledge became humanity's greatest advantage. Ancient humans didn't just evolve through their bodies, they evolved through their minds, with every generation starting one step ahead of the last. As ancient humans became more capable, they began leaving the place where their story had started, Africa. What followed was one of the greatest journeys in Earth's history. They crossed scorching deserts where water was scarce, climbed rugged mountains with freezing temperatures, entered dense forests filled with hidden dangers, and survived the brutal ice ages that transformed entire continents. Every new landscape brought unfamiliar predators, changing climates and challenges no human had faced before. There was no single survival strategy that worked everywhere. The skills needed to live on an open savanna were different from those required in icy valleys or thick woodlands. Ancient humans adapted by observing, experimenting, and changing their behavior whenever the environment demanded it. Instead of forcing the world to fit their needs, they learned how to fit themselves into the world. That ability to adapt, to think, innovate, and solve new problems allowed ancient humans to survive where countless other species failed. In the end, humanity's greatest strength was never power, it was adaptability. Today, it's easy to forget just how unlikely your existence really is. Long before cities, technology, or even written history, countless generations of ancient humans fought a battle that lasted nearly 2 million years. They endured hunger when food was scarce. They escaped predators that hunted them across forests and grasslands. They survived disease without medicine, freezing ice ages without modern shelter, and natural disasters they could neither predict nor control. Most of their names have been lost forever. Their voices have faded into history, yet every one of them faced impossible odds and made one outcome possible: the survival of the next generation. Your existence is not the result of one extraordinary individual. It is the result of millions of ordinary ancient humans who refused to give up. Every tool they shaped, every fire they protected, every lesson they passed on, and every child they raised carried humanity one step further into the future. Every ancient human who survived added one more link to an unbroken chain stretching across 2 million years. That chain never broke. And after millions of years of survival, adaptation, and perseverance, that chain ends with you sitting here today listening to this story. Before you go, here's a question for you. What do you think was the single most important reason ancient humans survived for nearly 2 million years? Was it intelligence, fire, cooperation, or something else entirely?